The world is on a way to climate hell. It has a choice between a climate solidarity pact or a collective suicide pact. With each passing climate summit, the words of the UN Secretary General grow increasingly fatalistic. And while on the one hand, the COP27 in Egypt has seen the usual speeches with lofty goals, on the other, there's been little significant concrete progress thus far. For more, the German youth climate activist Luisa Neubauer joins us for Perspective. She's one of the main representatives of Fridays for Future in Germany, and she's also at the summit right now in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Luisa, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, good morning.
So yesterday you confronted the U.S. climate envoy, John Kerry, about what you describe as the hypocrisy of Washington's rhetoric on climate change. Where does the hypocrisy lie in your eyes?
Well, that's something we're seeing all across the climate conference here in Egypt. The big emitters, the big polluters, which is the US, which is countries like Germany, the whole of the EU really, they come here with big speeches and big words and big promises. And when we look at their own fossil fuel track, when we look at where their money is going, it's actually them who are majorly behind the big backlash we see on fossil fuels. It's US American and European money that is right now fueling a new fossil fuel era all across the African continent. And people need to know about that, and they need to know that all the flowery promises that are being made here are really, have a really big back door to it that is being hidden from so many people here.
So what do you think is preventing Western nations then from stopping oil and gas expansion?
Well, I think countries like Germany, France, and the US, certainly, they're very scared, of course, of the energy crisis. But also we see that the leaders that we speak to here, John Kerry, namely, we also met Chancellor Scholz, we met Franz Timmermans yesterday. We don't think that they're actually believing or acknowledging what is at stake, really. That we cannot speak of security for anyone, not even energy security for everyone, if our livelihoods, our planetary boundaries are crashing all over us. And, these are about really tough decisions, acknowledging we need to phase out fossil fuels everywhere across the globe if we want to have a tiny chance to keep Project Humanity running for a bit longer.
Do you see nuclear power, Luisa, as a way to allow the world to, in the immediate future, wean itself off of fossil fuels?
Well, of course, it is not up to me to decide, but, the science is very clear. And all the scientists behind the UN, they are running around here at the climate conference, and their metrics are very clear. Nuclear power can play a tiny role in the energy safety, globally spoken. In some countries, more or less, but we see that globally we are on a pathway away from fossil fuels and away from nuclear towards renewable, peaceful, democratic, and safe energies that renewables are, and nuclear and fossil fuels certainly aren't.
Do you think that renewable energies, wind and solar power, is enough to fill the gaps that would be left by lacking fossil fuels?
Again, this is not up to what I believe, but that is up to what the scientists and the engineers tell us, and they speak a very clear language. We will need some hydrogen, and we will need, good batteries to store energy, and we need to be much more efficient with the energy that is being used. Energy isn't something that we can just take and take and take, like it has no price tag attached. But once these things are in place, yes, of course, renewable energy will play. That is already, clear, will pay for be the vast majority of the energies that we are using. And it is weird because there are just so many fairy tales around renewable energies, and we hear lead negotiators here asking us, do you think renewables will be, quick enough? And I don't think people are aware of how long fossil fuel infrastructure takes to be built and how much of an investment it is that oftentimes ends up being a stranded asset just because globally we see that there's a shift away from fossil fuels. So yes, we are all looking at the renewables, and the question is, will it be quick enough? Will it be just enough? Will it be decentralized enough to meet the climate targets? And that's, not something that has to do with magic. It has to do with political will and then going for it.
Luisa, you've met with several heads of state and government, including the German chancellor ahead of the COP27. Have world leaders been receptive to your message, or do you see it really as a photo op to say that they're engaging with youth climate activists but not really doing anything after meeting with you?
Well, I guess you have to ask them what they think about it. We are here to give it everything we can. We are here to fight. We are here not to give up. And we are confronting the world climate leaders here who are, who have a job to do at this very conference. They have to prove that their words mean anything, and they have to prove that, the Paris Agreement that was democratically decided in, almost every country of the world has a value to them, and so has our livelihoods and chances to a safe future. And if for them that's a further opportunity, fair enough, but we will come back to their words. And if they meet us now, we will certainly come back and confront them again and not let go.
Luisa, as an activist yourself, I'm curious to have your perspective on some of the recent forms that climate activism has taken. A lot of attention recently in the press has been geared at the Just Stop Oil protests in the UK, on activists pouring various liquids on works of art in museums. Do you think that this is an effective method?
Well, as long as our government and our leaders don't dare to find solutions to the climate crisis and leave all these answers, open on the table that we so desperately need, there will be more tension on the people. There will be more conflict within societies, and there will, be more scared people who just don't know what to do. And I wish we would live in a world where no young person, no young activist would feel like there was a need to pour tomato soup on any kind of painting, but the world that is being left to us, the hypocrisy that we are being faced with, the empty promises and the dire perspectives for our future, that is leading people to do whatever they can. And I wish we talk about the hypocrisies and the climate irresponsibilities of our leaders more than we do of the activists who are just trying to raise attention on the single greatest threat of the century.
Luisa, we have only a little bit of time left, but I do want to ask you, given what you've seen now, there's only a couple of days left for the COP27. Do you have any optimism that anything substantial at all will come out of this 27th climate summit?
Well, of course, things are still possible, and we're seeing that, promises on loss and damage can be made. We see that renewables can be ramped up. We see there's a chance to, find a strong language here to phase out fossil fuels. But, to me, as a climate activist at COP, it becomes clearer than ever that what, is a chance for us in the climate crisis is not the 2 weeks at the COP. It's the 50 weeks between the COPs. It's when people rise in societies across the world, when they hold the leaders accountable and pressure for real climate action, real climate justice. That is what's counting here. And that is what's giving us any chance for these COP to work out in any way successfully. It's about what we do at home. It's as we rise and organize and, understand, acknowledge. It is in our hands. Our leaders, they won't bring the change that we need to see. It's up to the people.
German youth climate activist Luisa Neubauer, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for carrying such an important message.
Thank you so much for having me.